Okey-dokey, so welcome back everybody to our Sunday sit. I think you're all regulars, but for someone on the internet that perhaps hasn't been here before, this is the Sunday sit hosted by the Monastic Academy, which is a training center up in Lowell, Vermont. It's a residential program that offers mindfulness and leadership training. My name is Peter. So the group right now is on silent retreat, which started Friday night, so we're all sitting quietly, hopefully quietly, many hours a day, trying to cultivate the practice, and I came down today to do some errands and eat tonight. So, it's interesting because a few days ago at the start of the retreat, we Christianed, inaugurated, we opened, celebrated the first day of our new Zendo. We've been building this new large building, not ourselves, we hired people to do it, but we've been working on this process for many years to make a meditation building, because when we bought this property about 2.5 years ago, it had pretty much everything already there. It had these beautiful furniture, had tables, chairs, kitchen supplies, beds, blankets, pillows. Had almost everything you would need to start a center. The one thing it lacked was a dedicated meditation space. There was no place where we could just go that was only used for meditation. If you've been up in the Lowell Center, you know that the main room where we do a lot of our chanting and meditation also doubles as our exercise room, also doubles as our meeting room, also doubles as our dining room. And so, as a meditation center, it's a little strange that we don't have a place to meditate here. So we've been working for many years to build this meditation hall. It's really gorgeous, really beautiful, and all of you should come up soon and take a look. And so we were opening the center, opening this new meditation hall, and on the first day of retreat, Surya gave a talk on sort of the many steps, many stages over the years, from him going to community households maybe 10 years ago, each week leading what was sort of a pre-Sunday sit, whatever that was, embryo stage, all the way to, at one point, residents used to live here in this building and would sleep on the ground with just sheets and bookcases separating them from each other, and then in the morning they would have to clear away the space to, again, use it as a dining room, or a study, or workspace, meditation space. And then we moved to Johnson, and then we finally bought this property in Lowell with the help of family and friends. And this year has been really interesting because we've gotten dozens and dozens and dozens of people coming up. You've seen many of them pass through here. They are here for weeks or months or years, and this is the first year that, at least in my 4.5 years of being there, we've had this continual, almost flood of new people, which is great. It's really nice that there are people spending time and both have the resources and the commitment to do that kind of training. The common challenge that was true for me, and I think it's true for the demographic that come to the center, are having too many options. And so the topic for tonight's talk that I wanted to focus on was this, exploring the dimensions of optionality, of having freedom, of having options, of having choice, versus, you could say, responsibility or commitment, or no options. And sometimes people come and it seems like they'll be a good fit, and in my mind, and I could of course be biased and probably not correct, but in my mind, I kind of look at them and I go, I think this person has too many options they're probably not going to sign up for a whole year of training. They still have other things to do, which is fine, which is good. I spent many years doing other things. A lot of residents leave, go off to do a lot of good work in the world. So it's not like we want to keep everyone there forever or something. In fact, we might have to start encouraging people to cycle through because we don't have enough space for everyone. It's starting pretty soon. And so a lot of people might come to this sit, for example, and on one hand they're saying, I'm dedicating this time to practicing, to exploring inward, to intentionally not pursuing a career or relationship or other things. I'm just going to focus on my practice, focus on myself for some time, put aside all the other things for a while, just focus on me and my experience, myself, being with myself. Why is it so hard, as Pascal said, to sit in a room by yourself and not do anything? Why is that such a torturous experience? Solitary confinement is the worst thing we can offer a Western prisoner these days. Why is that so hard? And so a lot of us come to our practice with that original intention. I'm going to set aside everything else and just focus on my experience. Cultivate these skills of concentration, clarity, equanimity, peace, friendship, compassion, relaxation. And then almost immediately, something else grabs us. Something else grabs me. And it goes into, why is that person moving so much? Why isn't someone else correcting that person? Why am I judging that person? Why can't I focus on my breath? All kinds of thoughts and patterns can play out. Maybe I should go somewhere else. Maybe I should go do something else. Is this the right practice? Is this the right technique? Is this the right teacher? Is this the right group? Is this the right time? Maybe I need to use the bathroom. Maybe I need water. Maybe I need to stretch. All these different options pop up, and it's hard. In modern culture, this sort of giving a lot of choices is sort of culturally incentivized. We think that if we have more options, the life is better. We want to. The evil in the world is that people are too constrained. That culture, institutions, and leaders and stuff are forcing people to do things they don't want to do, and that's the problem. Of course, there's some validity to that. There's some truth to that. But we also know that the opposite is also true. That having too many options is overwhelming. Having too much freedom can be an excuse, a delusion, to never have to commit to anything. Never have to face, who am I? What is my life? What's my purpose? It's so easy these days that a lot of companies are almost purely funded on the basis of being able to capture your attention and keep it as long as possible. And they don't care about our well-being or our health, but they just know that I can capture your attention and I can monetize your attention and make a lot of money. And so a lot of the biggest companies, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google, billion-dollar companies, top 10 biggest companies in the world, have this model. We don't charge you anything. We give you all these free services, and in exchange, we find ways to make you think and buy things that you probably don't want to think and don't want to buy, but feel good in the moment. And so, when we practice, when we go on retreat like the residents are right now, we eliminate choice, we eliminate options. We say there's only one option, which is what is the present reality like right now? What's actually happening? What's it really like to be with ourselves right now? Get to the place where our physical bodies can reach a point of stillness, silence, ease, cultivating a breath that lets us be both relaxed and energized, and then from that more calm and still mind, directly engaging all of the joys, anxieties, everything that reality is throwing at us. That's more or less my experience of the path, and it's very bumpy at times. Very simple, but yet incredibly challenging. Before I joined this whole Monastic Academy thing, I practiced in a lot of different traditions. I practiced Tibetan Buddhism, practiced Zen, I practiced insight, went to mosque, temple, spent a while looking around. On one level, hoping that I could keep everything that I have now and just add on spirituality on top and keep my job, keep my lifestyle, keep my preferences, and I just have to find the right teacher or the right technique or the right group that will give me the secret, and then everything will be great. But one of the things I found really striking is when I read or meet the teachers that are most inspiring, that seem like the real deal, not what they say, but just how they say it, you can tell this person has some depth, this person's not bullshitting around. There's some correlation that I can't 100% explain. There's some correlation between them having no other option, whether life put them in that circumstance or they themselves put themselves in that circumstance, and the level of their spiritual maturity. Soryu is probably a really rare exception in my mind, where he sort of voluntarily and continuously put himself in sort of these no exit situations where breakthrough, or I don't know what the other option is, but basically have to break through. And that's pretty rare. A lot of the teachers I know either recovering from cancer or lost a lot of loved ones. One of my college mentors that we affectionately call her Dr. P had childhood leukemia. She was always on the verge of possibly dying on a day-to-day basis. And my college years, I was more, not 100%, but I was more anti-Christian because I was rebelling against my Catholic upbringing. But she was very, she would say things like, God's just nuts about all of us. And when she said it, I 100% believed her. Whatever you tell me about Christ, I would believe and follow. And so she was that kind of woman who completely 100% compassionate, caring, honest, selfless. And I asked her once, do you think maybe there's a correlation between you having this childhood disease for your entire life and having to face death and reality on a daily basis, and the person, the character that you are today? And she looked at me and she said, no. I still think it's true. I think it at least helped. Although she might have had some natural genius, spiritually speaking. And then a lot of the other teachers I've met and explored, they all have this sort of not being able to do the normal consumerist, materialist, capitalist method of there's just the next app or the next date or the next vacation or the next job or next something that will then bring this lasting happiness and joy and connection and truth and wisdom, that then I can live my life and be complete. All the teachers that I know have either voluntarily or by life circumstance been forced to meet, what if I don't have another option? It's kind of a gruesome story, but there's one story about Suzuki Roshi, the founder of the San Francisco Zen Center, who also created Kasahara, which was one of the first Zen centers in America, Green Gulch, also in California. There was a story when he was a young man, a young monk, and at one point, I think he was doing something naughty or bad where he was still hungry at night, so he went into the freezer. He had like a walk-in freezer to get some food. He wasn't supposed to do that, so this might have been good karma or something. But then, as he was walking out and the light was off, something, like a hook dangling in there from the roof or something, stabbed him and penetrated his skin. And then he says that he was just stuck there. He couldn't move because then it would cause permanent damage or he'd die or something. And so he just had to stand there and basically was forced to meditate. And if anyone's done a hard sit where your legs are on fire, and at some point you just go, oh, I have to sit through this. There can be some breakthrough that happens, and for him, he says, at some point, some breakthrough happened where he didn't have an escape. He couldn't do anything else. He can't think about something, he can't fantasize about some other reality, he can't leave the room. He's just with the raw experience that he didn't choose, that he doesn't want. And I'm not encouraging anyone to try this at home, so don't do that. That's not the point of the message. Is not hurt yourself or stab yourself with sharp things. It's more exploring the phenomenon of not having another option. And so he had his breakthrough that way. There's an Indian saint, Indian teacher, teacher of people like Joseph Goldstein and Sharon Salzberg, Jack Kornfield, that whole American Buddhist teacher group that everyone knows about. Her name was Deepa Ma. She passed away a few decades ago, but she taught many, many people. She was a householder. She had children, grandchildren, but she too also experienced a lot of hardship in her life, where her first child died at an early age, which put her in great, great physical, mental, emotional anguish for months or years, where her husband had to basically raise their second child, and then her husband passed away, then her parents passed away, and she was in such great anguish that she finally went to a retreat center and basically had a breakthrough in her first retreat a few days in. And similarly, sort of like no other choice, no other option. Complete depression, complete despair, complete loss of freedom, loss of power. Or my personal favorite, because it's very relatable for me in my current lifestyle. There's a Korean monk called Kusan, I think. He was alive back in the 50s or 60s. And the story for him goes, his first initial big breakthrough happened when he was with one of his brother monks. Korea back in the 40s and 50s was like a third world country. Like, my father getting a radio was like a big deal. So they were in the countryside traveling, and at one point they had dinner, and then the brother monk got sick, They called for a doctor. Doctor came and said, this guy's really sick. If he doesn't get to a hospital very soon, he's going to die probably. Did you know he has this stomach problem? He has severe digestion issues. And according to the story, it goes that he had spent a few years in a hermitage living by himself and lived off of eating pine needles, basically. And then at one point, someone gave him a very luxurious meal and destroyed and wrecked his digestion. So, and so they're in the countryside. He's very sick, verge of dying, and they both know there's no hospital they're going to get to. There's no hospital in 50-100 mile radius. They're not going to make it to hospital. And so the brother monk looks at Kusan and says, I'm going to be dying soon. I need you to promise that you're going to get enlightened so that you can guide me in my afterlife. And Kusan apparently, I'm paraphrasing the story because I don't remember every word, but Kusan said something like, we are Buddhist monks, we know that death comes for all of us, no need to fear, and I promise I will wake up within, I forget the number, but something like they believe 49 days is the reincarnation period. So I have 49 days to get enlightened, and then I'll help you in your passing through in the afterlife. And then he passes away. This is the part I really liked, where he says, when I left the monastery, there were 2 of us, and now I'm returning, and there's only 1. And then he said, I'm going to go into solitary retreat and have a breakthrough and help my brother monk out. And apparently he was like the abbot or a senior student or something. He spent the first several weeks just managing affairs and helping out with the funeral preparations. And then finally it was like, oh my God, there's only 7 days left before the 49 days is over. I need to go into the cabin. And so he goes in the cabin, and sadly all his concentration is just terrible. He's falling asleep, he's getting angry, can't concentrate. 2 days in, the other monks in the monastery come up to ask him questions about funeral preparations. And he goes, stop talking to me, don't you know what I'm doing here? Just figure it out, why are you asking me these questions? I'm on a really important mission here, you guys figure that out. It happens to me all the time, so that's why I like that part of the story. And then he resolved, okay, I keep falling asleep, I'm just going to stand and meditate. And I resolved to not sit down or lie down and not move until I've broken. Either the 7 days is over or I break free. And apparently he did. So, now of course, these are like kind of inspiring stories, but there's a reason why none of us really ever want to do these kinds of things, because to commit. I was having an interview with one of the residents, and they made, I probably shouldn't tell the story, but I think it's generic enough. They made a commitment of, I'm going to do this in this amount of time, and then they failed, and they felt bad, and they were like, I shouldn't make commitments, I'm just going to break them, I'm not trustworthy, this is terrible. And I know I've had that experience where I go, I don't want to make any commitments, any promises that I'm not 110% sure I can follow through on. And commitment like I'm going to get awakened, I don't even know what that is. I don't know if it's true that everyone can really achieve that. You know? Maybe not do that. Let alone smaller commitments, you know? Recently, someone made a commitment of, this is in a group I was in, she said, if any of you are close to dying and you need someone, I will be there, 100%. Which is a huge commitment, saying basically, I guess it depends if you believe in the afterlife or not, but just even in this material life, if anyone in that group dies, she's saying she'll be there, unless she's dead, in which case maybe she'll be there in spirit or something. But Those are like really strong commitments I don't think people make in modern times as much anymore. But to me, the downside of that is it leads to this half-hearted, fickle, not very meaningful, low responsibility, low leverage living, which was basically my life from 18 to 25. I worked a remote job doing IT where I could live in any city. I lived in an RV for a while. Practiced in a lot of communities and wouldn't commit to any particular group. A group of friends would change every few years. And to some extent that's good. There's exploring, there's figuring things out, there's seeing, is this place trustworthy, is this a good thing to commit time to? But at some point, I remember talking to one teacher, she said, I didn't like when she said this to me, but she said, it's normal in the first few years of your practice that you do a lot of spiritual shopping around. And then finally you have to settle for someone. They're not going to be perfect, the group's not going to be perfect. That's just like an immature, naive, early stage everyone goes through, is shopping around. And in my mind I was like, no, I'm making a better system by taking the best from each group. And I'm like an independent person, so I don't do well in groups. Yada, yada, yada. But she was right. She was right. At least for me. And so, of course, the Buddha knew about this sort of malaise, this challenge of having too many options, of always having a way out. And so he actually said, everyone, monk, layperson, man, woman, anyone who's practicing this path should cultivate what he called samvega, the sense of urgency, the sense of despair, sense of disillusionment. That's kind of what happens if you ever have a really close loved one till you pass away. And suddenly you reevaluate the entire meaning of life, and oftentimes, at least in my experience, resolve to, I'm not going to waste my life anymore, I'm going to do the right thing, I'm going to really go for it. This person passed away often before their time, and so I can't take this life for granted, I'm going to really do it. And so the Buddha also said it's important to have this kind of sense so that we have that energy, we have that commitment, we have that type of intention when we practice, so that we have enough energy to break through our usual habits and patterns that are disempowering us from living our true life. And he said, one way you can do this is contemplating the reality of death, contemplating the reality of sickness and old age, contemplating the reality that everyone we know and care about will pass away as well, and finally contemplating that our actions matter, that what I do matters, it has an impact, it will have an effect. My life in the next moment, in the next day, will be impacted by how I live, how I think, how I speak right now. But there's a responsibility, there's an effect of our life. Which these days, in modern times, we have this sort of existential sense that nothing really matters, and the best you can do is create meaning out of chaos. But nothing really matters. But the Buddha was pretty clear that Sorry's main teaching is, one of his main teachings is actions matter, our lives matter, who we are as a person matters. And so, given the theme that Sorry's been doing for the last few Sundays around death and dying, and it's personally been something that I've been exploring the past year in my own practice, this sort of theme of putting a stake in the ground and choosing not going to just endlessly entertain many options, but really focus on what's important, what's most essential, and cultivate that sense of urgency, not to the level of panic or shame, but just to the sense of invigorating energy and clarity to do what's really needed. And when we get to that place, that's a real place of power and confidence and vulnerability. So, let's practice. Start by finding a settled position in your body. It's both relaxed, upright, energized, at ease. I find a lot of people rush this step too fast, and so really finding ourselves in our body, allowing a sense of ease to be there, allowing any sense of tension or tightness allowed to be there. And just orienting towards if there's any way in which I can have a more peaceful and energized body experience, allowing that to happen. Similarly, cultivating a calm yet energized breath. A lot of times this might mean having full breath, full body breath. Sometimes that might not be available. Simply setting the intention and commitment. I'm going to be focused, relaxed, and energized. I might not know how, might not know when, but I want to aim for that. And then if you wish, I invite you to do these recollections, these remembrances. Of course, as always, if you already have a technique that you came tonight wishing to do, or feel a certain momentum around, feel free to do that. If you want to join, feel free to invite you to follow along with these. So first, we can bring to mind the reality of old age, or aging. As of now, there's no technology, no feasible technology to extend your life indefinitely in this material world. There is aging. The reality of our bodies breaking down. Bring to mind the reality of sickness and illness. And inevitably, all of us will get sick at some point. If we have not already experienced this, we will experience it or experience it again. relying, trusting, assuming that our bodies will work this way forever is not realistic, is not true. Bring to mind the reality of death and dying, that I too will one day pass away. All of us have known others who have passed away. A few of us have truly experienced the reality that I will pass away, that I will die. Nearly everything, if not everything, that I've depended on, believed in, assumed on this basis of living, will one day not be the case anymore. And you can bring to mind that others, those you love, those you care about, even those you don't know very well, will also experience aging, sickness, death. And to rely on them exclusively is not realistic, isn't true. Everyone I know, everyone I meet, will also die. And then finally, remembering that my actions matter, that my intentions matter, that my thoughts matter, that my speech matters, that I matter. I have an impact on myself and others in the world. Remembering that actions have consequences, choosing to take complete, total responsibility for this life, this mind, these actions, these words, these thoughts. And then from here, choosing any meditation technique, any focus, whether it's your breath or your body, listening to the sounds in the room, feeling your feelings. Choose a focus space. I'm going to default to feeling the breath in my body. Notice that you're having that experience. And if you ever get distracted, need some help, bring up one of these remembrances, if not all five, and then come back to your technique. this is going well and easy, that's great. Enjoy the sense of concentration, sense of allowing and trusting your experience. If you find yourself sleepy or distracted, try bringing up one of these remembrances of aging, sickness, death, the importance of your actions, holding the right intentions, holding the right views in mind as you practice. 5-minute break. If anyone wants to use the bathroom or stretch. Good. So in this next period of guided practice, we'll focus more on cultivating good. If you want to keep doing the first practice we did, then feel free to do that. But invitation is to join me in the second practice if you wish. People can approach mindfulness for a lot of reasons. Sometimes it's for self-improvement, learning how to relax, learning how to focus, learning how to have emotional regulation. And that's good. That's very beneficial. It'd be good if everyone learned those skills. And a few people, this community is very unique and spiritual maturity and depth, are also engaging with these questions of life and death, of being of service in the world, of who am I really and what am I supposed to really do. And so in that way we can use meditation to really meet these questions head on. Recent years there's been a lot of good critique of mindfulness, to sort of make mindfulness. Maybe it's just a way to pacify people, to be good capitalists or something. In a lot of ways that critique is good in that it sharpened people's questioning and reflection on the issue. And anecdotal evidence that I've heard, and I think there's some research around this, that a lot of times when mindfulness is taught at companies, job turnover actually increases because a lot of people are confronting more and more real things about what's really important for them. And oftentimes that means going somewhere else. I know one company that teaches mindfulness, and I talked to their private instructors, and they said, most of the people after a year or two, the teachers end up leaving to Asia or to learn, practice more, or go somewhere else. And we have a real problem with people teaching and staying. So anyway, the second guidance, I want to work with setting the intention for compassion, of dedicating our practice, if you wish, to not just self-improvement, making ourselves move more effectively in our existing life, but dedicating our practice and by extension our life to the betterment of the world, of all living beings. If that seems too grand, then choose a circle of people that you would feel commitment, you would feel confident about committing this next period of time to. Are there any loved ones? Maybe those who take care of you, or you take care of them, or vice versa, both. You dedicate your practice towards holding the view that learning how to make good use of my mind, knowing how to engage my mind, set positive intentions, cultivate a sense of rest, focus, friendship, compassion. I do this not just for myself, but for these people I care about, if not every being in the universe. Getting out of our own way to allow that natural energy and compassion that's already here. So if you wish, you can bring to mind different people, empathizing with their difficulties and challenges, truth of their suffering, sickness and death, and also envisioning, wishing, intending, committing, taking responsibility for whatever good that they can experience, can learn, can realize. Noticing any habitual negative thoughts that we might have as natural human anxious beings, and cultivating a sense of positive intention. Wish, you can just use mental imaging, imagination, saying phrases and words in your mind like, I care about you, I love you, I will save all beings, I'm willing to face whatever comes up. Using words or images or both cultivate this positive, confident, vulnerable, authentic, caring, compassionate sense. And then allowing yourself to feel everything that comes up, particularly positive feelings. Giving ourselves the challenge of, what if for 20 minutes I could cultivate a positive mind, a positive body, positive feeling, regardless if I feel good or not. Holding that intention, using my thoughts and actions to cultivate positivity, and dedicating that to ourselves and everyone we care about, and ultimately every living being. cultivating a mind that's expansive beyond ourselves, tapping into the source of care and compassion for others, generating positivity, meeting any self-shaming or self-negativity with positive thought, positive intention. Imagining, choosing, committing to a world that's good, caring, supportive, willingness, courage, and vulnerability to face any and all challenges in the pursuit of what's good. Cultivating a mind, at least for a few moments, can have the sense, allowing the joy, the love that's already there, burst forth once we get out of the way and reconnect with everything. Difficulty or pain, that's okay. It's not your pain, it's not a problem. Connecting to the world's pain. opportunity to cultivate a sense of compassion, but there are others who also feel this. And this is my opportunity to know how to work with this, how to be with this. This is easeful, concentrated, compassionate, grateful, loving, and allow yourself to fully feel that. Whatever the experience is, continually taking action, cultivating a sense of positivity, choosing how you think, what you think, where your attention goes. big part of the evening. Open time, I guess. Anyone have any reports, questions, comments, concerns about either tonight or in general? Open floor.
Well, I'm not, I feel unsure with this exercise and this sort of setup to it. Very rarely have I come here and thought something presented might really not be a good idea under some circumstances. But this raised certainly the question for me as to whether, I mean, we generally have defense mechanisms around these sorts of issues, and they can be triggering issues. Now, for me personally, I've been working with meditation around some of these things a lot for the last few years, so I don't really particularly feel it that way, but it seems to me that it opens a lot of doors at once, so I'm just sort of, and I'm also thinking of it in context of the last series of weeks, and I'm partly curious why so much focus on this sort of area of death, dying, aging, disease for a few things in a row by different people. I'm wondering if there's some sort of context to why this is like coming up now, but at the same time, I'm just sort of offering the point of view that just sort of, to me, the energy level of just that much focus in that area wasn't sort of brought me to a kind of a feeling of a dark kind of place, and so I'm just sort of putting it out there as a thought. I also wonder about this as a motivation for doing. If like the energy, again, it's to me something about like the energy level. I could see maybe taking like a piece of this, meditating on it and saying, well, is my avoidance of this sort of distracting me from the rest of my life, or something of that sort. I wonder if our actions, I think what we do in life does and doesn't matter in a certain sense. Like, in the end, in the ultimate sort of totality of things, well, I think for one thing, there's a reason why we meditate, and there's a reason why we engage in a spiritual practice rather than simply, say, focusing on activism or like humanitarian, direct humanitarian stuff. And part of that is because just simply the act of doing isn't really enough, because the world is like maybe acts a little bit like an organism, and when it's like unhealthy, if you try to do something really helpful, sometimes it can sort of kind of climb around you and do that. So I don't know. I just sort of see that as part of the purpose of this sort of spiritual effort in this context. But I don't know. I think it's a good idea to do the best you can in situations, partly because it changes like who you are. But whether the actions themselves are the important thing truly, I've seen different perspectives on it, at least, and so a lot to sort of put out, but I just thought I would share my thoughts.
Great. So it sounds like there's some concerns on more of the first exercise. It seems like around the focusing on death and dying and sickness and old age, which, as you said, seems like it's been a theme the last few weeks, at least for you and then me now. I missed a lot of recent talks. I haven't caught up on all of them, but I know at least the last three, including this one, is dying. And as you said, people have personality structures that could potentially raise a lot of issues for someone if they're particularly vulnerable. It raises kinds of issues. So far, so good. Yeah. And then sort of separately, this question about how meaningful, how impactful are our actions given the totality of systems and people and everything. So I guess I should say before anything else, if this isn't a given, I hope it's a given every time I'm teaching at least, that I'm not a very good teacher, so it's very possible whatever I'm saying is terrible and bad, and it's always a possibility that definitely making some mistakes somewhere every time I'm teaching. Shinzen, well, Soryu told me this, I don't know if Shinzen actually said this, so I'm trusting that Soryu is paraphrasing correctly about what Shinzen said. Shinzen's sort of like one of the godfathers of this group. So when a teacher is teaching, 40% of the time, people hear what they're afraid of hearing. They're afraid of anyone telling them. 40% of the time, they hear what they want to hear. And then a teacher somehow has to work in that other 20% somehow. So, which is, kind of true of any communication with any two people. That's a challenge. I would say the first few years, definitely the first few months, maybe the first few years, when I was at the academy, I had this very concern a lot of the time. I would see Soryu give a talk about something, or I'd see another senior resident talk about something or correct someone else around something, and I would get really upset and think, oh no, you're going to cause this person harm, or someone in this room is going to hear it poorly. For some reason I always thought, not me, because I'm usually okay with things, but someone in this room is not going to misinterpret best case scenario, you're going to misinterpret what's being said. Worst case scenario, you're actually saying something that's bad for this person to hear. And as anyone who's been here a while knows, I do this other practice called interpersonal meditation or circling. A lot of times it seems really unskillful, and it seems like people are just lobbing things at each other. It's like a no holds bar, you can say whatever you want, it feels like to some people sometimes. I'm never sure what I should share and what I should keep. Not sure. But one time I was leading this practice with a group of people, and one person got very upset. She had never practiced this before with us. She had never done this practice, this interpersonal meditation. And it said something like, I thought this is a place where everyone is keeping compassionate, positive intentions with each other, and is mindful of their speech. It seems like everyone's just saying things that it would be better not to say, and you shouldn't say these things. Judgments and hard feedback and things. I've practiced this thing called nonviolent communication. We should adopt that and do that. And then so I would ask her, who do you think in the room right now is being damaged? I would like to know if there's anyone in the room that thinks what is going on is hurting them. I want to know. And everyone said, no, actually, we usually don't have any time to really go into things, so it's messy, but it's actually really enlivening, and I want to work this out. So I'm actually, even though it's really hard, It doesn't always feel good. I'm kind of happy that this is happening. Eventually she had this epiphany that her way of trying to manage how the group talked was actually violent. She was trying to force violently nonviolent communication onto a group that didn't want that. And so, similarly, I'm often feeling those two sides. It's very possible that whatever I'm saying or teaching or leading is wrong, or is landing, being interpreted wrongly in a way that isn't intended, that has negative consequences. And I would like to know if that's the case. I would really like to know, because I don't want to do that. And yet at the same time, well, A, is that true for anyone? And then B, there's never going to be a perfect Dharma talk or perfect teacher unless the Buddha or Christ comes, sits here. And so I think one of the things that something I learned maybe a year or 2 or 3 ago around as I stepped into more and more leadership and took more and more responsibility in my middle community, I realized that innocent position where I don't take on responsibility and power because I might hurt someone is eventually no longer a tenable position. It's actually just me not wanting well, everything I said tonight, not wanting to face reality, not willing to be imperfect and take responsibility for things. And I think if anything, that happens too much with people that you could say are liberal or left or something, spiritual. This fear of potentially damaging other people leads to a lot of people not doing much. Only going to do things where I'm 110% sure that no one's ever gets hurt, ever. It's really funny in our new monastic community, the #1 way that we probably learn and grow is everyone giving each other feedback, correcting each other. There's so much resistance for all of us to doing it, because we're scared. We're going to say the wrong thing or hurt the person. I'm not coming from 100% clarity or truth or love or something, so they're going to feel bad if I say it the wrong way or something. But in the long term, in my experience, that actually leads to a really bad community. And a lot of the other intentional communities I've either tried to start or I've seen often fail because no one in the group wants to do that. Because it feels bad. Actually, no one likes that feeling. And if anyone's been a parent or a teacher, you probably know this very well, better than I probably do. So, on one hand, I think you're right. I wouldn't say go to like I probably wouldn't say everything I said tonight everywhere, for sure. But to the extent that I know at least half of you fairly well, I think you can handle it. And I think that's why you come here rather than the many other groups that do many other activities that usually feel actually better or more pleasing to be, there are other things you could do on a Sunday night in Burlington that would probably feel more pleasing. But you come here, which always surprises me. For the first few years that I was in this community, it surprised me. I can't believe Sorry's saying this and people still show up every week. But you just sort of self-select being here, right? If you don't like it, there's a lot of other things you can do. But again, if anyone is hurt or feels like the message I'm saying is wrong, then please do tell me. I'm very open and wanting that feedback.
Hi, everybody. I wonder if I could offer a succinct poem or two about these topics. Is it okay? You're very agreeable. Who knows what I'm going to say?
We know it's going to be interesting.
First is a poem about philosophical discourse and the way it free associates and self-criticizes. It's called Philosophical Piddling. Syntax shifting, mind drifting, aimless reflection, losing direction, purpose petrifying, sanity sighing. Oh, wait for aimless reflection, wandering, weary, deathless, and dreary, purpose petrifying, sanity sighing, dutifully unzipping, pissing, and missing. And then another one, or on the other side, instead of losing because of endless possibilities and options, this is about intense focus. I'm gonna break through! Kind of, I'm under the Bodhi tree kind of. It's called watchful vigil. Pinions poised, rods and cones in ready, sinews stretched towards muscles, might behind a sheath of flesh. Tumult sound, force unbound, Buddha. Release, void. These two I consider the gates to the heart. One is the mind trying too hard, trying to force things. The other is the mind drifting, hoping to catch grace and insight on the fly like you could as just enjoying speculation. And now another poem which realizes these are errors. These don't lead to any integration. It's called Ego. What will my ego be? My eyes lay bare, myself to see. I stare at what's reflection of me. A million mirrors surround my soul. Will they bound me or make me whole? The world that revolves outside with myself, from me I hide, as the world that evolves inside asks itself, where does truth reside? The basic idea is that there is ethics and aesthetics. First aesthetics, what I like, what I don't like. Then ethics, because it involves other people and the golden rule and all that. And so what is bad and what is good in terms of others. And then that is endless. endlessly shifting. The only rest is infinite resignation to the process itself of honoring the distinctions between beautiful and ugly, good and bad. And then finally, after that infinite resignation, where you, instead of trying to calculate options, you understand surrender is the only happy function of free will. Because if you operate on an independent cause, that I am an independent cause, I am a separate cause, you only get karma. You think there is a separate cause, there's never been one. Everything is co-arising. Everything is not separate. Everything is one. Nature. So finally, the last poem, and please forgive my length. I don't want to be loquacious. I don't want to be endlessly talking heads. I want clear, focused experience, and that's why I come here. And I love you all for that, because you generate it. So the last poem is, it's an expression of joy, having found that all desires, personal desires for this or that, resolve themselves in purpose. That is the Bodhisattva, just to love life. That purpose satisfies all desires and is creative and joyful. Those who are on that path are resolute in purpose. There's nothing complicated. It's very simple. And this poem is called Between Twinkling Stars and Sparkling Sea. Water of life and reflection and illumination in the darkness, the stars. Afloat on this ocean of love. Call down the heavens above. Ring the bells of sweet longing. Invoke the muses. Sing songing and swim to the brightest star. But if you can't swim that far, roll over in fluid rhyme. Upturn the undertow of time. Make great waves in your ocean and ride the crest of your commotion. Surf along your rising ridge. Fervent prayer will be your bridge till setting foot on heaven's shore. You hear the surf's applauding roar and bow your head. In glistening sand, each grain a star within your hand. Thank you.
Time for one last one.
Thank you for your talk. Thank you for bringing forward the 5 remembrances. That's helpful to me in focus and staying with the topic. I appreciate that. And I was just thinking that during this series of talks about life and death, and having had a small opportunity to spend 4 minutes with Soryu on a just in conversation, I feel I'm actually grateful for the series, because knowing that there's a mission, increasing compassion to save ourselves and all living beings in general, with all of his teaching. I think he's very clear about that. And the call to action. So what the series is doing for me, is, and your story you told tonight in particular, is like, I don't know if I have 49 days to wake up. I know I don't have 49 years. And there is finally, because I have been able to gain some focus through practice, I begin to feel like I have a legitimate call to action in things that I'm interested in, primarily around climate change. And I feel this sense of urgency. I feel this sense of urgency because I know I only have X amount of time left to contribute and to matter. You know, I'm sure you could argue the point if I haven't mattered already, but yeah, to matter more, maybe to do something, maybe make a slightly more, maybe plant that stick in a more profound way. So the topic is very stimulating to me, and I, as you well know, am in the middle of a period of grief that will change my life forever. And yeah, you know, sometimes it makes me cry, and sometimes I have to go home and write my journal. But my grief around death is almost exclusively about other people. I don't feel that way about my own death, hardly at all. I'm hoping to surf my consciousness into the stars, like Jeffrey just said. That's my plan, and I appreciate that. Thank you. And so I think that because we are who we are this small group of, many of us have sat in this room for quite some time. I appreciate the increasing depth and sort of sense of urgency. And I think that your skillful smoothing around of some of those points is also helpful. So those are my comments, I guess. I don't really have a question, but that's how I feel about this particular round of practice.
Well, it's very nice having a community like this, and I hope all of you come up to Lowell and do a retreat. That's the main prerequisite to sit in this chair. And as we've seen tonight, many of you have a lot of good wisdom that we need to hear. So I look forward to that happening more and more. I would say, me and Sori didn't plan this. I don't know why Sori's been talking about death and dying recently. I don't have enough time with them to ask him the questions. I have probably a million questions I won't ask him. It's too low on the list, so I don't ask him. But this is something that I've been, particularly the sense of some vague urgency has been something on my mind in the past years. It's the only thing I haven't talked about, I feel like. I'm running out of things to talk about. So.
He told us of some very scary, you know, he was facing death on a bicycle, then on skis. It's like he has a daring, you know, athletic death wish, should I say? I don't know.
It's amazing to me that he's still alive. But, well, yeah, I hope this continues to be a place where we can really do it. When we had no ceremony to inaugurate the new Zen that we built, and we're planning on having a community celebration next month, so I hope you all come up for that. We haven't set dates yet, but just before we used it, we had no ceremony, and for me, I said a lot of things, but one of the things I said is I give a lot of thanks that there are still people who care about this, and still support this, and that are still doing this, because it's really Buddha said the most important factor is spiritual friendship. So having even just one other person, let alone a whole community like this, that where we can explore these kind of topics is really special. And obviously, we don't want to do it necessarily for everyone. We want to be skillful how you deliver teachings, but I'm particularly grateful that this exists. And when I lived in Boston, which has dozens of sanghas, I didn't feel like any of them could have these kinds of conversations. So, or maybe I wasn't ready, so I believe that. I never felt this. Great. So, to close out our evening,